Hi everyone, welcome back to Carols of Wisdom from my first Know by Year. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about quantity of stuff and how I used to buy too much. So I think with the rise of minimalism, simple living, slow living, it has become more widespread knowledge that an excess of stuff creates stress and creates all these kinds of downsides that don't really make up for the upsides, the feelings of joy that we get in receiving stuff, unboxing stuff. The excitement of the new is outweighed by these detriments of excess, of accumulation. And I think one of the things that we need to try to avoid is unintentionally burdening those we gift to with more stuff. And as I learned this year, it doesn't take a lot to make excess. So in buying your friend another pair of earrings, you are then giving them another option from which to choose every single day that they go to wear earrings. In giving somebody else a new makeup product that you like, you're giving them another option that has to be used among all of their other products that they already kind of have and like and prefer possibly. And they're now going to be fighting against the expiry dates for some of these products with more options in their collection. If you give someone another book to read, now they might have another for the pile of their to-be-read list. And who knows if they're going to neglect another book that they had planned to read instead, or if they even want to read that book. Hopefully you know whoever you're gifting books to well enough to know that they're going to appreciate it. But either way, unless you know for sure that they want that exact book and they have the time and the space and all of that to bring it into their lives, it can be risky business. And then not least of which, if you have kids that you're buying for and you buy them toys or clothes, sometimes it's adding to the burden of not only the stuff that they need to manage, but the stuff that their parents or caretakers or guardians have to manage, because kids often are not great managers of their own stuff. And I think they get easily overwhelmed by having an excess of things like toys and clothes. I don't think their brains deal with the choice, the overwhelm, as well as adults do, and I don't actually think adults deal with that very well either. So that is basically the thesis of this video. When you buy gifts for others, think about the possible stress and the clutter you could be burdening them with. I know, what a great cheerful holiday sentiment, right? And you know, hopefully the people you're giving gifts to are people you know well enough to know that what you're giving is actually something that they're going to want and love and appreciate and use, and you can kind of avoid these problems. I guess when in doubt, something quickly consumable. Not just consumable, right? Because makeup falls into that category of consumable goods, but it takes months, sometimes years, to use a full makeup product. So when we're thinking about consumables, quick consumables, I think, is another little qualifier to add to that. You know, something that could be used, even something like a jar of honey can take months to use up if the recipient doesn't liberally use honey every day. I have jars of honey in my pantry that my parents brought 2 years ago, and we still haven't gone through all of them, so I'm speaking from personal experience here. So all consumables are not even rated as equal. And I also feel like part of the burden here as somebody giving gifts is that we want it to feel like enough. And that is a very subjective thing, and even we can observe in children sometimes where they don't feel like they're getting enough gifts if they are confronted with the idea of only getting one or two things. And I think this is kind of a natural human impulse. Even if they haven't been exposed to direct comparisons, you know, among their peers or talking about things with friends or seeing things on TV, which seeing things on TV might be the first kind of window into a normal Christmas and normal Christmas with excessive gifts that many kids receive if we see that in holiday movies. I can't actually think of examples of Christmas morning from holiday movies. You know, maybe the Grinch has some holiday gifts involved, but I think movies, at least, don't tend to focus on the gifts in the opening on Christmas morning. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. Let me know if you can think of specific Christmas movies that do focus on the quantity of gifts. I have a scene from Harry Potter rolling in my mind about Dudley not getting enough gifts for his birthday one year or something like that. But it's this concept of feeling like you're giving enough as well. And I think we can try to make up for quantity or size, you know, if we give just one single chocolate bar, for example. That's a quick consumable, and you can eat that in a sitting and not feel, it might be a single serving chocolate. And I think we can make up for the feeling of enough if we try to infuse it with connection. Write a handwritten card to accompany the chocolate bar, detailing very personal things about your relationship with the person you're giving it to. And I would actually hypothesize that a card like that, for some people, might mean more, and it might get kept in their bedside drawers or box of memorabilia much longer than a physical gift would be, even a non-consumable physical gift. Now, I might not be the greatest personal example of this because I do have some books that I've kept for years that have been gifts with inscriptions from the person who gave them to me. So I guess in some ways that is the personal connection being given as well as the physical object. It just happened to be tied to the physical object. I guess if I really wanted to minimize, I could take the book jackets with the inscriptions and either make a copy or, heaven forbid, cut them off and get rid of the book without the cover. I would not do that, but I could do that if I wanted to keep the connection aspect without keeping the physical object. But anyway, there's all these downsides to giving, actually. All these kind of judgment and societal downsides that are attached to the act of Christmas gifts. And sometimes it's that feeling of not giving enough. Sometimes it's the feeling of receiving something and then feeling obligated to give something in return because you have that moment of like, oh, you got me something. Oh, nice. I have something for you too. I just left it at home, or whatever it is. And I don't really think that this needs to be a part of gift giving season. And if we are giving or observe others giving with the intention or implication that they're going to receive something back, I think that's part of the problem. And people might not be out there giving like this, right? Most people who give gifts, I would like to think, just like to give gifts. And any feeling we have of, oh, I should have got them something, is hopefully just our response. And again, we can kind of assuage this by perhaps leaning into the connection and maybe writing a really nice thank you note to say, wow, I'm so happy you thought of me. And one of our best memories this year, one of my best memories with you this year was this. And I hope to do more of this. And maybe I can take you out to dinner or something like that even. That would be a really nice response to that in my mind these days, now that I'm thinking about it in a more cool, level-headed, less consumerist way. So we want to stay away from these feelings of ickiness, this guilt, this owing the favor, this obligation, this kind of even money-associated feelings can be there. Like if you receive a very expensive gift and you don't have the means to give that way in return, it can feel kind of icky or feel kind of, you feel like you wish you could give in the same ways. Even if you do have the money, but it's not your priority, you could feel kind of like you're being a Scrooge for not prioritizing it. There can even be that element of virtue signaling and or wealth and status signaling in the way we give gifts. And I'm not here to say that any efforts in the realms of sustainability are bad or virtue signaling automatically, but there can be an element of dampening holiday cheer when we talk about how to be more sustainable at the holiday season. And this is perhaps another issue that's not totally related to overbuying, but I mean, it is definitely related, but I'm thinking more of like, oh, you shouldn't use wrapping paper. You should wrap your gifts in cloth and reusables or brown paper so that it can be recycled. And, little things that are changes we can make and people should be making, but it's hard to communicate these things at this time without sounding like a Scrooge, without having that kind of feeling of judgment about what we're sharing or about, not that we're judging how other people do things, but there is kind of this atmosphere that's rife with exterior implications if we have a certain attitude during the holiday season. It's also very tied to family too, right? So if you say something about how your family behaves, it can be seen as very judgmental or very critical during a time that's supposed to be cheerful. We're supposed to be close and have a good time. So, maybe these are some attitudes we can try to notice within ourselves if we do have these come up, have these emotions and feelings come up, and then also notice in a kind way if we're trying to communicate with somebody and we're having a hard time getting through. The baggage of the holidays can be a thing as well. Getting back to actual baggage though, the gifts, I think where we can be careful in our own lives as well is in setting a precedent with any kids. So if we have kids ourselves or if we're gifting to other kids, that we know, and not setting the precedent for quantity of things, not setting the precedent for cheap things, cheap junk. I think if we have a mentality of, the kids probably have everything they need already. Because if they needed it for everyday survival and or entertainment and fun, they would probably already have one. And the kids themselves may or may not have a list of things they want, and you may or may not have access to that information. I, in my own experience, have never been a kid who's not happy to get some source of sugar over the holiday season, and any season, to be honest. As I know my own kids have positive associations with visiting the doctor because they get a candy after they're done. And so they want to go to the doctor because of that, even if they have to get shots and things like that. I mean, they don't want to do that, but they don't remember that afterwards. They do remember the fact that they got candy and they want to go back. So a little goes a long way. An immediate consumable is oftentimes a great option for a gift. And if that doesn't feel like enough, you can always make up for it with leaning into the connection you have with that person. So either by spending time with them and giving them your full attention and trying to be interested in them as a person. And it feels kind of strange to say those things out loud, but it is. In today's society, I feel like getting more and more rare to sit with somebody and truly just luxuriate in their presence and be interested in whatever is on their mind and how their life is going, and to kind of make ourselves enter that space. We go to work and we have all the hi, how are yous and surface level chat, sure, but it's rare, I feel like, to really break into the deeper levels of connection in those environments. And even when we go to get dinner with a friend, it can take a while to get beyond that surface level to like, okay, now we can really talk and pay attention to each other, and the phones are away and we're not going to be interrupted, and I'm not thinking about anything else besides the time we're spending together and the topics we might cover. And I think cultivating more of that with everybody that you would give a gift to, right? Somebody who's that level of close with you, I think is a very positive way to lean into the holiday spirit of giving, and doing it in a way that kind of removes ourselves from all those other realms of judgment and association and virtues and values and even just financial realities. And also avoiding the burden of stuff for the people that you give to. Now, of course, for me in my personal life, it is mostly to do with kids, since those are the only people in my life that really get gifts on a regular basis over the holiday season. And the older kids will have things that they want, and it's kind of therefore easier to manage. We're not yet at the point where they have lists that are so long that they're unmanageable or have to be pared down or have to, be really talked through as far as, you're not going to get everything you want. So maybe give me a priority order here, or give Santa a priority order. We're not there yet. And hopefully we can avoid getting there if we don't get exposed to influence of more and overconsumption and all these narratives that marketing uses to get us to feel like we need more and more and more stuff, and it's never going to be enough. And hopefully by the time, if we do get there, I will be equipped with my own narratives, my own lived examples as far as what my own collections of stuff look like, my own criteria for bringing something new into my life. That's one of my projects for next year, actually, is having a set of criteria for what constitutes not just a want versus a need, but a legitimate purchase. Something that you know is a want, but not a need, but something that you think is justifiable through practical terms versus less practical terms. So we're going to be avoiding any impulse buys, like that goes without saying. But if you have a set of parameters, amount of uses that this item will get within a certain time frame is maybe one of the parameters. Obviously, a budget is another huge parameter. And I think most adults in our lives, most even older children, will understand that a budget comes into play, and it's not wise to overspend to buy gifts, even for friends and family and kids and things like that. So if we feel this judgment, I think we're also projecting some internal attitudes rather than reflecting the true external ones. Again, keeping in mind that everybody with a reasonable mind is going to understand if I say, look, I'm sorry, I don't have the budget for this year. And part of it is living in line with that, right? You can't say you don't have the budget and then drive to work in your new BMW, right? Like, that doesn't really work, or it's not really going to endear you to your friends if you're basically saying, I don't have the budget to prioritize something small for you because I'm busy knocking it out of the park for myself. So the morality of money is another thing that's going to come into play next year too. So I will wrap up today's little chat here. Let me know if you have any thoughts about buying too much, about setting reasonable parameters for gifts, about navigating all of the judgmental narratives that exist around this season, or even the things that we can just feel internally, even if we're not feeling outwardly judged by it. All right, I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.